Hi class, welcome to MBA 621 for the summer session. My name is Dr. Daniel Richards. I'll be your teacher this semester. I'm going to be doing these short little video lectures as I indicated in Blackboard and in the syllabus. They're going to just kind of serve two purposes depending upon the week. So they're going to describe what you are responsible for doing for the week. So clarification of assignments, kind of contextual framing for the assignments and all those other things, kind of a rationale as to why I'm having you do what you're doing. And then sometimes I'll kind of get into more content-based, kind of more video lecture about kind of key concepts, explaining, kind of giving more context as to why someone in my field is teaching you business writing, for example, or just other concepts from the textbook. So hopefully you've been able to procure the textbook in a timely fashion. And we'll be using it pretty consistently throughout as a framework, but we're not using enough of it to, again, justify buying the latest version of it. That's why I had you guys buy an earlier version of it, because we're not using over 50% of it. So I would still encourage you to look through it. There's lots of good stuff in there. Beauvais and Thill are pretty renowned for their ability to write succinct, effective business writing textbooks. And if you have any thoughts on the textbook, then certainly feel free to send me those notes via email. So this week, week one, this is kind of an introductory, kind of a smooth transition into how I'm approaching the class this semester. So I'm in the English department. My background is in rhetoric and in technical writing. I do both things. So rhetoric and argumentation, the history of rhetoric, contemporary applications of rhetoric, motive application, communicative frameworks, all that stuff. And then technical writing, I also teach courses in technical writing, which is workplace communication, writing in scientific contexts, communicating science to the public, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of straddling both those things. So one thing that I want to communicate to you, given my experience as a writing instructor, is just in the few years I've taught this class, and in just teaching writing to a variety at a variety of different levels, all the way from freshman up to PhD courses and in different disciplines as well, is without fail, it comes up at some point that we all have different attachments to writing, different feelings towards writing, different attitudes towards writing. So you're in an MBA program. A lot of you have a lot of industry experience. You're either going back and doing your program, or you've had internships already if you're kind of coming right into it from your undergrad, or if you're an international student coming from another country. In all three of those cases, you understand intimately the importance of writing, right? So you already know. So if you have 5, 10, a lot of students in this class have 15, 20 years of industry experience in whatever field they're in, they know writing is important, right? That's kind of the flat line, right? But for a variety of reasons, I guess, people have various attachments to writing or negative attitudes towards writing, right? And the reason I hesitated there is because it's kind of when I teach this course face to face, we do exercises on kind of unpacking the psychology of writing, right? So we use the example. This might be a generational thing or kind of a regional thing, but I recall a moment when I was younger where I forgot to write my name on a worksheet. This was third grade. I forgot to write my name on a worksheet. And as punishment, to make sure that I never did it again, I had to write lines, right? So if you ever had to write lines as punishment, certainly if you had any sort of traditional instruction in that way, then you might relate to that. Well, what that communicates, of course, well, first of all, I never forgot to write my name on a worksheet again, so it was effective, I guess. But what it did, or what it has a tendency to do, is to associate negative attitudes towards writing, right? That's obviously an extreme example, but writing as a form of punishment, writing as something that you kind of have to do as opposed to want to do, right? And then as we kind of grow up and develop, right, we see writing communicated or described in terms of being an art form, right? So writing is an art form, and as with a lot of the kind of softer arts, right, you're either born with that skill or you're not, right? So pretty early on, we're kind of divided into, okay, he or she is a good writer, and he or she's not a good writer, so they might go into kind of STEM or engineering, or some people might even choose majors based upon how much writing they have to do, right? So let's say you're a history buff or you love history, but then you realize you have to write a seminar paper in every single history class, or you love reading or you love literature or poetry, but it's not necessarily something that you're comfortable creating. So we kind of have these cultural attachments to writing as something that you're either good at or not good at. And you've had a variety of teachers throughout your entire educational experience, I'm sure, from elementary to middle school to high school and even to college, who perhaps have never told you you're a good writer or this is really good writing, right? Or you see them compliment other people, say you're a good writer, and becomes like an attachment to your identity. Oh, I'm a good writer or I'm not a good writer. And that kind of becomes an essentialized skill that you either have or you don't, right? So what I'm having you do in week 1 is kind of unpacking that, because I think it is important to kind of understand and to unpack how these experiences in your life have shaped your attitude towards writing. And it might seem kind of silly or simple or kind of more in the realm of psychology, but that's fine. But it's very important that you think about your attitudes towards writing and where those came from, right? And kind of unpack maybe those key moments or those key teachers, right? We've all had English teachers that have either have had a really positive or really negative impact on us, right? Just in terms of our either ourselves or just our ability to write or our confidence writing. So what I'm going to approach this class with is kind of done with that nonsense, right? That you're either born a good writer or you're not a good writer. And I think those of you, you're in an MBA program, you realize that writing is not necessarily an art form, it's more of a skill, right? And if you keep on working at it and you keep on practicing and you get more and more experience, and perhaps you found this in your industry experience, that the more you're doing it, the better you get at it, right? It is a skill that you can work on. And that's the approach to this class is what are those skills that make you an effective business writer? Or in your specific context, even it can be even smaller, that you're an effective writer in this specific subfield or this specific industry or this specific type of corporate environment or whatever it is, right? Or to this specific audience, you're really good at writing, memos for public consumption, for example, but you kind of are less confident writing emails to peers or to superiors, for example, right? So you might have various strengths in different settings. So the goal of this class, we have 6 weeks. I can't tell you everything there is you need to know about writing. What I'm going to do is we're going to model the best way to describe it is a process of habituation in writing. From the time that you get something that you have to write, or from the time you get a writing task, right? How you go from that specific moment to successful completion of that moment, right? And what are the habits you can do throughout, right? So we're going to build on those habits this class so that when you leave this class, hopefully those habits will be strong enough to apply to your setting, whatever that may be. And there's so much diversity amongst all of you that there's really no point in giving examples of what that might be. So what also is included in that is you might have developed some habits that are ineffective, or you might have developed some habits that are specific to you and have helped you in one specific setting but don't necessarily transfer or aren't generalizable to other settings, for example. So that's a kind of spiel. My approach to this class is focusing on habits, is kind of bringing you from that moment to the end of completion, right? And knowing that the goal here is not perfection, right? If you waited until your text was perfect, you would always be writing, right? So it's not about crafting the most perfect text possible and kind of seeing it as this art piece that kind of needs to be done. It's about thinking critically. If you make some mistakes or kind of missteps or whatever it is, get over it, get past it, and just kind of improve and see it as a cycle of habituation, of improvement. Because a lot of the writer's block that you face, or a lot of the hours you've spent staring at a blank Microsoft Word document, comes from that anxiety, or comes from not necessarily having the habituation or the habits or the skills about how to approach a specific thing. So that's my approach to this class. If you have any questions about that, or want to chat kind of back channel via email about your specific writing experiences, I'm more than open to doing that. That's part of the course as well. So it's kind of a workshop in that sense. And next video, we're going to get into more detail about what type of writing assignments you'll be doing. But for this one, for this week, you have 2 things to do. You have to complete a questionnaire that's kind of a writing inventory almost, about kind of a self-assessment about your strengths and weaknesses as a writer, and just kind of your perceptions of writing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather all that data and share it with you in week 2. just so you get a sense of what you and your other, I think there's 35 of you, so what you and your other 34 peers kind of view writing, or what your perceptions towards writing are. And then the other thing is I'm going to have you write a 500, what I'm calling a memory piece, where I'm asking you to relate to me your most positive experience with writing. So not negative, most positive experience with writing. There's no formatting guidelines. Don't worry about APA, in MLA, and no stylistic guidelines. You can write it however you want, completely free form. The only thing I ask is that it's 500 words and that it's single space. And I want to just provide an opportunity for you to reflect back on a most positive experience of writing. So part of that work will just probably just doing some memory inventory about recalling your most positive. Perhaps it was something very recent and you already have an idea of what it is right now, or you have to maybe sit down with a cup of coffee and just kind of think about it, or go for a walk and kind of go back to maybe your elementary or high school. Maybe there's that one paper you wrote in high school that got really good grade and you're very proud of, or whatever it is. So I want to start on that note. So it's pretty wide open. It's you kind of did it or you didn't do it. It's you're not going to get a C or an A or B on this, right? So if you write 500 words and it's about a positive experience with memory, then you're going to get the full points. And then make sure you complete that questionnaire, because if you don't do it, then points will be taken off. So let me know if you have any questions about those two things. I don't want you to overthink the memory piece at all. Be as creative. If there's spelling mistakes, that's completely fine. It doesn't matter if there's incomplete sentences, it's completely fine. It's literally just kind of free form, you sharing me with your experience. It's just so this sets the tone for the rest of the course by starting out with a positive memory, but also gives me a sense of kind of the writing that you guys have, and then kind of a collection of good memories that you guys have to establish it. So that's it for week one. Email me if you have any questions. If not, enjoy the week and enjoy the writing assignment.